Today I want to show you how to achieve full anatomical forms using the edelweiss direct veneer system. Don't worry about the colour difference, that's deliberate. I used an A4 and an A1 just to show the amount of colour that you can get coming through the basic enamel colour of the veneers. The starting point is going to be a model with the teeth already formed to some degree. So don't worry about that, that's just normal veneer preparation. You don't have to do full reduction, you preserve as much tooth as you possibly can, but the end result is to achieve the shade and the translucency that you desire. So starting with the teeth you want to restore, as showed you earlier, the acetate shade selection, and we're going to use medium for this. Easy peasy. If you flip it over, you might also wonder about using small, but in this case we're going to use medium, and you'll see why later. So having selected the veneer, you can see it's got a lovely luster on it. The fit surface also comes with quite a smooth sheen, but I'll be addressing that later on to show you what to do. But if you can't see it too clearly now, you can actually see, I hope, the instrument shining through, and you can see how it is actually the full effect of natural enamel. So your colour comes from the composite layer. It does not come from any opaquer built into it, which gives you a much nicer and deeper natural luster. So having selected the upper left central, we have the matching upper right central, exactly the same, just a demonstration for today's purpose. Placing them over the prepared teeth, you can confirm very easily that we're in the right ballpark. And again, if you want to get the contact areas flatter, it's a moment to adjust them. Very, very straightforward with either discs or burrs. It's entirely your choice. So the next thing to address, I'm going to do the right one first because of the missing left lateral. What I want to do is confirm that it fits where I want it to fit. And I can see a little bit wide on the contact areas. So I'll adjust those with a disc. So trial fitting the thing on, I can see the contact points aren't really as aged as I want them to be. I'm just going to flatten them off slightly, and it'll avoid moving the centre line across to the left a bit as well. So prepare for some noise using a medium to coarse disc. And the same on the mesial aspect. And that should have just moved it across enough to where I want it. And if I put on the left one, I shall take a little bit more off the distal aspect actually. Just to blend it in that little bit more, because what you don't want to do is leave black triangles if you can avoid it. I don't know how well that picks up, but I've just improved the length of the contact between the central and the lateral. I haven't yet touched, so you can compare the slight amount I've done on the right one with the left one. And again, polishing this is completely conventional with extra fine discs or rubbers or your preferred material. Personally, I find diamond polish isn't the best solution. I prefer very, very fine rubbers. I mean, this is idealised on the model. Every case will be different. A human being, of course, will be different again. What we do need, though, is a keyed surface on the inside to increase the surface area and just make it more chemically amenable for bonding. I'm also knife edging the margin so you don't get a step onto the tooth. If you want the margin so you can't find it with the probe, that's something you have to do. But again, it's a customizable device. There are other things you can do as well. For example, you can put some internal anatomy in there if you want to use internal staining. Internal mamelons. You don't have to, it's up to you, it depends on the individual tooth. And I'll just dust that off. So that's broken the glaze. What you'd then do is paint it over with the veneer bond as provided by edelweiss. You don't use normal bonds because the chemistry is appropriate. And the next stage is to bond it. So for this, you use the veneer bond as provided, and just a minimal amount on the micro brush, and just very thin, minimal layer, which you leave for 30 seconds, then air dry, and then light cure. So for the sake of demo, let's pretend that was 30 seconds. As you would with any bond, you blow away the excess monomer, the carrying solvent. That probably is about 30 seconds now. I would normally time it. And then light curing machine, there is a filter in place. There's my imaginary filter in place while I cure it. For the means of demonstration, obviously this is slightly going to be different, but that's life. And that is now ready to put to one side and ready to be bonded in place. We'll do the other one as well. So once again, I'm going to improve the contact area. Discs are a little bit safer to use because you've got more control. I have on occasion used diamonds, but you take your life slightly in your hands doing that, as I'm sure you can understand. So, putting them back onto the patient. Hopefully you will agree they just look a little bit less newly erupted and a little bit more like they've had some life to them. The recommended way to achieve a nice sticky interior surface is mechanical roughening. I aerobraid everything, so I do aerobraid these. I can't see the issue with either way, so preference. Not everybody has aerobrader, but here we go. Using a slow diamond for this, you can take your life in your hands, be very brave, use a turbine diamond if you wish, but have a stock of veneers because you never quite know. So I'll just take the margins down to a knife edge again. Hopefully the camera can pick up the sheen on the inside of this veneer. It does leave it looking rather dusty. That's very shiny inside. So I prefer using aerobrasion either instead of or as well. The one I normally use is the Crystal Air aerobrader, and that I'll do half of it with that. So again, trying to get the light reflecting. It's gone. Anything adhesive, I aerobraid everything. And I do find things tend to stick much more predictably. So, and the other way is, if you don't want to go for the entire aerobrasion setup, is the Etch Master. This comes in the normal 4-hole, 6-hole Midwest connection and goes straight on to your selected airline, whether it's slow, turbine or an extra one. Simple as that. It connects, and your selected medium, this is the aluminium oxide, regular size. There are many different types of abrasive. This is the standard size, and you turn it on by pulling out the nozzle, and you turn it off by pushing the nozzle in. And all we do then is to select the veneer, that I abraded with the Crystalair, and I'm going to do this one now with the Etchmaster. Exactly the same idea, but without buying a great big box. There you are, all gone. Just dust it. Normally I'd do this using high volume aspiration next to it with any air abrasion, because otherwise it does make a bit of a dusty mess and you don't want to breathe it in. But even without aspiration, it's not particularly messy if you just get on with it and are efficient. And just like before, paint on the veneer bond. Give it 30 seconds, and by the magic of camera, we've had 30 seconds. Like here. Exactly the same as with the other one. There we go, 30 seconds. That is now ready to go. So, got the veneers prepared, got the patient prepared. Conventional etching and bonding of the teeth, I'm not going to cover that because in all honesty it's something we all do every day. The edelweiss composite is in the standard shades and goes in the standard composite gun. So the way to do this, I actually normally put a bit of flowable onto any surface before I proceed, but I'm not going to here. We all have our own way of doing it. Put some composite into your fingers just to warm it up. You can use a composite warmer if you want. I don't have one. And then what you do is place the composite into your selected veneer. And again, it's a nice illustration of the colour shining through. If you want to see about characterisation from inside, there are other sources. Edelweiss have a nice video showing characterisation as well. So, placing the composite evenly as you can inside the veneer. You may have picked up that I'm being a bit more rough on this than I would dare to be on a laboratory made veneer. So, picking it up and placing it on. Pressing quite firm. You can see the composite extruding. You wouldn't dare do this with a laboratory made veneer. Get it seated where I want it. Now, on a real patient, this is more exacting. You'd look at it from above, you'd take away the excess composite, of course, acetate strip to control the excess flow and to get the emergence profile how you want it. This isn't totally lifelike because it's a plaster model. What you can do, if you wish, you can run a bit of flowable into any margins as well. There are various ways of using emergence profile matrix strips as well, but this is the idea, and it really is the finessing at this point that makes or breaks it. And this, in the papillary region, the emergence, is everything, because if you leave a step here, you will have hell to pay when you try and adjust it after it has cured. But this sort of micro gap management, emergence profile management, is bread and butter to us, because we, like I keep saying, we do it every single day. I've used A2 here because, as we know, everybody's A2. Other shades are available. And trimming away the excess. Now, you can cure this now if you wish to, or if you're more sensible, imagine that I put cellulose strip between to separate them, but it's not really practical on a plaster model. And then do exactly the same with the neighbour. Once again, pick it up, evenly spread it. Sometimes you use too much, sometimes you use too little. That's just practice and experience. And then once again, place it onto our wonderfully anemic patient. So again, take away the excess material. Checking the edge, make sure they're lined up, push it nice and firm. Again, a lab-made one are probably broken at this point. It is composite. It is something we use every single day. And I'm lucky this time because that tooth is missing. Lucky patient. So again, finessing it, I would normally use some sort of interproximal, either a very thin metal matrix. I would be running flowable and little extra bits of composite into there and holding it tight with cellulose. But you know what, this isn't a real patient. It's a lot more difficult to do that. It's easier in some ways, but for getting into proximal separation, this isn't really the ideal format for doing it. But I would hope you know precisely what I mean. And again, it keeps extruding and extruding and coming out, so getting it there, and spend time with flowable, finessing it to your heart's contentment. The next step will be, once you're completely happy with that, the emergence profile, the papillary area is the danger area. That's where you've got to get it right. Imagine I'm using cellulose strip and putting it around. You can tack it. You maybe get that side where you want it, set that. Then you get your cellulose strip and get that side, depending on how tight your light curing unit is. Checking it's down, checking for excess subgingivally. Again, place cord if you want to before you do this. Not a problem at all. Get it exactly how you want it. Remove any obvious excess. And I would say now is the time to be curing this, or at the very least just tacking it into place. So brace yourself. And the same on this side. 10 seconds of very exciting dentistry. Follow your light curing manufacturer's instructions and composite instructions for that. This light curing machine from Ivoclar is 10 seconds. So they are in place. What you would then do, which I do, is to go round it with an extra fine tapered burr. That is my preferred pattern for doing that. And again, just run it round, run it round. You can also, of course, use a polishing disc again. So that's the teeth cured into place. The one I showed you earlier, you can see the difference, I hope, between the lighter A1 and the darker A3.5, A4, I forget which now, but much darker. But all of them masking the dazzling white plaster that's behind them. And the same effect on a darkened tooth, of course. What you will see on here is the teeth look very newly erupted. Let's pretend this person's 40 or something. They wouldn't have mamelons probably. So what you can very easily do is just add some life to them. Give the person a bit of history. Or even, if you're so minded, put in wear faceting. The choice is entirely yours. And that's it. That's how you place veneers. I've missed out the real details, real finessing that take time, but if you don't understand how to do this, then there are courses that you can come on, hands-on courses, that will explain it in more detail. So once you've got them the shape that you want them to be, you have to finish it. I prefer to use rubbers. So removing the coarse finish from the burr or the disc. and going round any marginal adjustment you've done. Fairly coarse adjustment. Then go over it with the fine one. Again, exactly like finishing a composite restoration. And you finish when you're happy. So I would expect to take 20 minutes per veneer. There's a lot more finessing that you can do. You almost get to the point of, have you ever finished? These are 1/2 millimetre thick, by the way, so you can pretty well do zero prep if the tooth's in the right position. And it's certainly worth trying them onto the tooth before you start getting the handpiece out and taking vast lumps off. A very quick, very efficient, cost-effective solution for both you and your patient.